Today we're gonna make a classic red velvet cake with a bourbon cream cheese buttercream that is just a flavor combination that will blow your mind. It's a tender, moist, slightly chocolatey red velvet cake that has this silky smooth bourbon cream cheese buttercream. It is amazing, and you have to try it. Let's get into it. So, the first step, what we're gonna do is we're gonna prep all of our miscellaneous things, right? So we are going to start with our pans. I'm gonna make it 3 layers. You could also do this same recipe in 2 8-inch, and then you're gonna have a really fat cake, which you can then cut in half and assemble like I did in my devil's food for a 4-layer cake. But we're gonna do 3 9-inch. So what I'm gonna do for that is I'm gonna line the bottom of my pan with parchment. I have 3 pieces of parchment that I have stacked because I'm not into, wasting time. So I'm gonna go ahead and take 1 pan. As we do, line the outside. If you are persnickety about, getting Sharpie on the outside of your cake pan, then you use a pen or something. So I'm gonna take all of those, keep them in line, and then I'm gonna cut on the inside of the circle, right? Because obviously we trace the outside of the pan and we want to line the inside. So cut in the inside of the circle. Okay, discard your scrap. Voila. Yeah, pretty sweet, huh? All right, so now we've got those. And we are ready to give our pans a little tss. I like to just go ahead and just kind of give a nice light spray. Ooh. Yes. Nice light spray. Pan liners into pan. Boop. Boop. See how that fits so nicely. Check us out. All right, so our pans are prepped. We're gonna set those aside because we don't need those now. Nope, we do not. What we do need is to sift our dry ingredients. Now, we are using cake flour, alas, so you have to sift. So we've got cake flour, I've got cocoa powder, not in substantial amount, I might add, baking soda, wow, kosher salt, boop, boop, and whisk those together. Would I have used a slightly larger bowl if I had thought this through? 100%. But we're in it now and we're gonna sift it anyways. So, carry on. The good news is that I've already placed my parchment down that I'm gonna sift onto, so anything that flies out of the bowl right now is going onto the parchment and is gonna get into the cake anyways. Yeah. And now we have our mixture, or cake batter. Now, be aware that I am making a larger batch of cake. So this is more cake than is going to fill these pans, and that is intentional. Just so you know, and you're not like, whoa, that's a lot of batter. So go ahead and sift. I like to sift right on parchment. You've seen me do this a million times. And that is so that it is easier to pick up. It doesn't get all over the place because, let's be honest, sometimes sifting is like a messy activity. Now, the lumps is for the cake flour and also for the cocoa powder, because depending on your cocoa powder and how it's stored, it could be a little lumpy. So I'm gonna put it back into my bowl. All right, the next and last thing that we are going to prep is we're gonna put water with our sour cream. So I do this to make it easier to get the sour cream mixture into the bowl. It'll incorporate faster and better. The key is that you don't want any lumps to remain, because those lumps, if they're in here, they will be in your batter, and we don't want lumps in our batter. Lump free. So now we are ready to start mixing. You know me, my butter is cold as ice, so I'm gonna have to work it with the paddle and the blowtorch to get it to be soft and pliable. That's what's up. So I'm going to take my sugar now. My butter is soft and pliable. I'm going to put my sugar in. This is regular granulated sugar and light brown sugar. And turn that on slowly because it's a lot of sugar. Don't want sugar flying all about. And then gradually turn that up. And we are going to cream this until it is light and fluffy. We're making a cake, not a pound cake. and we want it to be a light and fluffy texture. So again, with creaming, we're looking for it to kind of like pull together like it is now. You can see in like kind of chunks, if you will, and then it will spread out. It will kind of like fall into the center, and it won't be like a paste anymore. It will look kind of fluffy, and that's where you know it's perfect. All right, start adding our eggs one at a time, letting it kind of beat in there after each and every single one. It helps if your ingredients are all room temperature. Mine aren't. You're still gonna make a darn good cake. I'm gonna stop and scrape down my bowl, make sure that I get all of that down at the bottom because I want a nice, beautiful cake all the way throughout. Now we are gonna add the vanilla with our last egg here, so go ahead and get the vanilla in there. All right, so all of that is incorporated and we're ready to add our food dye. Now it is a lot of food dye, okay? So, and we are gonna be very careful. I've already gotten it on my fingers, but we're gonna try not to get it on the counter or anywhere. So we're gonna turn it down just a little lower than more like if we were adding our dry ingredients, because it is just going to be, you don't want it to fly everywhere. This sounds weird, but there's enough vanilla and food dye in this that it is actually kind of part of the liquid in your cake to an effect. So now we've got a beautiful batter. It's come back together. It just kind of gets a little shocked when you add the food dye, and honestly, it's a shocking color, so I don't blame it. So we are going to turn this back up, and we are going to about low, and we're going to start adding our dry and wet ingredients. There's a lot of dry, so I'm going to go ahead and start adding this with my spatula so I don't get it everywhere. Go ahead and add that. Just want to make sure that you're not waiting for the dry to incorporate completely before you add the next batch. You want to work efficiently and quickly, but you don't want to overwhelm the batter either. All right, so we've incorporated the last of the batter, the wet and the dry, and we are going to finish this. Just give it a couple folds by hand. You just want to make sure you get, because there's always like some sugar, like sugar butter situation at the very bottom of every single bowl, and you don't want one cake to have that in there because then it's going to bake funny, it's going to get a weird texture wherever that is, and we don't want that. So because I have extra batter in here for another endeavor, each layer is 541 grams, but like, let's be honest, it's not that serious. So we're gonna get to 540-ish, and then we'll go on to the next layer. Okay, that's 544. Just kidding. Honestly, scaling isn't a bad plan no matter whether or not you're making extra batter or not, because it's just nice to know that you have the exact same amount in every single baking vessel, and so you don't have to stress about the baking time being drastically different or ending up with like a super weirdly shaped cake, or you're like, oh man, my middle tier is like, wow, really large. So you don't have to worry about that. All right, get yourself an offset and spread them out. Just kind of get it there. You just want it to be a nice, smooth, like, when it bakes, it's gonna smooth itself out just a little bit, but it's not gonna like redistribute it completely. So just go ahead and get it where it's going. Now, I have preheated my oven to 325 degrees, and you should also. My oven is convection, so if you do not have convection, then you should increase it to 350. And that's it. Now they're smooth. That's not it. We have to bake them. But so we're going to take these. We're going to pop them in the oven. I'm going to see if I can fit all three on my middle rack, kind of like this. That might be asking a lot. And if not, I'm going to rotate. I'll rotate because they will bake differently. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these in the oven, and I'm going to check them in probably 8 minutes. It's a thin layer of cake, and I just want to make sure that they aren't burning or over baking. Like, nobody wants a dry, sad, overbaked cake. Not here. No tears. And they're out. So they baked about just shy of 20 minutes. You want to make sure that the edges are set and that they're firm to the touch. Not firm, but that they, have resistance when you touch them. Just to be double check, you can use my favorite tool in the kitchen, the cake tester. and for its original purpose, and pull it out and make sure that there's just clean crumbs and there's no actual batter or anything on there. We're gonna let these cool for 10 minutes in the pans, and then we're gonna turn them out and let them cool completely. So I'll check back in 10. All right, they are cool enough to overturn, so I am going to do that. I'm gonna cool them upside down, so just kind of flip them over and then pull the parchment off and repeat with all the cakes. Now, this makes 3 thin layers. Could you have done 2 fatter 8-inch cakes? Absolutely. Or 9-inch is fine too. But I really wanted these layers, and that's what I have. Now you can see how different parts of the oven, and this one was in the bottom, and it's like the most uneven bake, so wherever you place it in your oven matters. You can rotate them earlier, but just be very, very, very gentle when rotating them, because especially like around the 8 to 10 minute mark. In the meantime, I am going to make my cream cheese buttercream, which we are gonna add bourbon instead of the lemon juice. You can make this with a regular cream cheese buttercream and it would be delightful, obviously. But today I'm feeling a little bourbon is in order. And like, when is it not? Let's be honest. And we're back. Our cakes are cool. Our buttercream is made. We have chosen our favorite cake stand. And for today anyways, because you know I change my mind all the time. And we're ready to roll. So I've got, this is my cream cheese buttercream up there, which is just phenomenal on its own. But today I feel feeling the bourbon. So we're gonna put bourbon in. And all I'm gonna do is kind of like add it, and then that was about a tablespoon. Now I am adding this in the cream cheese buttercream recipe. There is a substantial amount of lemon juice, so I am adding this in place of the lemon juice. All right, let's taste it. Woo, yum. It's like bourbon, cream cheese, tang, sweetness. Yes. Cake stand. It's heavier than it looks. Choose a base level layer. Doesn't really matter. I'm gonna choose this one. Obviously I cooled that upside down and, you know, whatever. So go ahead and add about a 1/4 cup, maybe a little bit more to the bottom. Just a nice thin layer. You've got 3 layers to play with. Now you notice that I'm using my cake stand like a turntable. That's intentional. You could also do this on a turntable. Next layer, go ahead and get that hopefully as centered as possible. And if one of them was kind of, you know, a little like this, then I'm gonna put it next to one that's like this. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, just kind of like that way together they're flat. So same amount of buttercream, nothing crazy. Try not to get it on yourself. If you do, you do. I like to use the bottom as the top, right? So I'm going to place the bottom up, because then you have like a higher level of it being, likelihood of it being, well, you know what, today, this one is super uneven. All right, if it bothers you a significant amount, you can level it off. But these cakes are so thin that would be kind of a shame. All right, just carry on with your frosting. Now this is why it might be nice to have the parchment that I usually put down there, because then we don't have to clean up our cake stand. Now bourbon makes this a little loosey-goosey. So, you know, if one were wanting to be, you know, safe, one would have chilled her cake. All right, so the last step here, I'm obviously making a naked cake. So I'm going to take a bench scraper and I'm gonna scrape off the edges. And what that's gonna do is leave the cake exposed with a beautiful little layer of buttercream. So go ahead and just, using your bench scraper to scrape off the sides. You can really only do this like 1 or 2 times max before it kind of ruins it. So you want to make sure that you get a nice good go at the first time. And that's how you make a naked cake without a cake color. Et voila! C'est fini. All right, now it's time to try. I mean, you know what the beauty of these cakes is that you can just like assemble it and you're like, and I'm ready to eat it, so we are. And in we go. Oh, but it slices so beautifully. I don't even need my little paper towel situation that I've got here. Oh my goodness gracious, it's just divine. Do you see this? I mean, yeah, she's pretty awesome. Amazing. Oh my gosh. The red velvet and the bourbon and the cream cheese tang and like just like that hint of chocolate from the red velvet cake, it like all comes together and it melds into one, and it's just explosively good. Just saying. This is delicious. Red velvet cake taken to the next level.